Hi all, this is a special update of the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. My name's Thomas Williams. This will be a short... Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. This is a special update of what is really going on around the world, and particularly in the battlefield of America. Now, normally we don't do these updates without special reason, and we're in rather testing times. We've also had a lot of high shows where we've exposed criminal elites and what's really going on around the world and shutting down various organisations. But as always, there's a backlash, and they're trying to interfere with the show as I speak. And this is some of the backlash that's going on that you're not being told in the mainstream media, and unlikely to do so, and or for large sections of the alternative media either, as far too many of them are bought and paid and corrupted. So a couple of the smaller items to get out the way. The solar observatory shutdown is much ado about nothing and a complete distraction, so ignore that. The explosions in various towns across the northeast of America, Boston, Pennsylvania, to do with gas lines, were down to the Nazi faction causing disruption. Now, investigations are ongoing. I can't say too much more, but I will say larger events have been blocked and will continue to be blocked. That will be dealt with accordingly. Now, the Rothschilds have given up on the Asian faction and the fake Chinese elders and the RV, and have gone into genocide mode. They're now engaged the Nazi group, whose membership of the AAIA stands at 2.5 million. For those of you who are regulars to the show, know I've named some of those people, and some are in the alternative community, who are members of the AAIA, who belong to the Nazi party, Nazi group. Now, Rothschilds are wanting them to unleash global biowarfare to reduce the population by 90%. It will be stopped, but they have 3 different modes of delivery to accommodate the various human genetics involved. We all have different genetics, and no one size fits all. And each delivery method had a reduction of 25% for each one, and the rest would die by a combination of all 3, or so they think anyway. Now, Bill Gates of Microsoft fame is tasked with the role of the Grim Reaper, and it's high time that all so-called authorities act. This is a national security issue for every single country on this planet, and it's time that these people were rounded up and dealt with accordingly. But do I think they will be able to achieve that task? No, I don't. But that doesn't mean to say we should ignore the threats that are ongoing. Next piece, the fabled RV failed again on Saturday, predictably, because they have 0 funds. We keep telling people of this, and people think, no, they can pluck stuff out of thin air. Well, the next few pieces will dictate whether you think that can still go ahead. The reality is the funds required to fund the RV, as it's labelled around the internet, would mean locating and allocating more money than has been spent by everybody in the last 500 years. It's not possible. It wasn't possible before 2012 when they had control of the trust, and it's certainly not possible when they don't. Now, on Friday, there was a Treasury meeting at the Department of US Treasury with around 10 insolvent banks all attending the meeting, including all the cabal-named banks, your Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citigroup, etc., JP Morgan. And the banks were told that they only have one option to be able to restock or refloat their banks. All of them are in various levels of zero liquidity. The Manor World Holding Trust, as we announced in last Thursday's show, floated them back up to zero, as most of them were negative 16 up to negative 42%. Now, obviously, the Citigroup or Citibank carried on playing games, and so we took all those bonds off them, and they're now somewhere between negative 400 and negative 500%. So the US Treasury told them the only way to restock and refloat your banks is to go with the Manor World Holding Trust. That was Friday. They were also told to produce all audit figures in time for a secondary meeting which took place yesterday. Now, as of Friday, we expected chaos to ensue, as essentially now they are backed into a corner. It's either keep your bank with the Manor World Holding Trust, or your bank goes bust, period. Now, on the Sunday, the banks did produce their figures, and all of it was lies and distortions and a whole heap of cooked books. The Treasury ran their own reports and found huge discrepancies, so now the Treasury are aware of the lying of the and ongoing fraud and corruption of all the banks involved. Now, they can go many ways with that information. I think most of us who use simple ideas would follow what should happen next. And this is where the problem currently lies, because what happens next is we wait, and we wait. Well, enough of that. And this is why I've done this message today. So they have to unblock the Manor World Holding Trust, or every single business, whether it be bank or corporation, in every single country will go bust. It's that simple. Now, a message to the Treasury: sack all the top CEOs of every bank. They've all been involved in it. You have all the fulcrum files on all of them, on every single bank and every level of corruption involved. Remove them all, be it the individual banks or the central banks. Shut down officially the Federal Reserve, who had its license revoked by the trust last week, whereby now they cannot hold, trade or transact in US dollars. How can you have a bank in a country that cannot use the country's denomination? Shut them down. The IRS also shut them down, and either restructure or delete accordingly. Now, it could well happen over the next few hours, because everything is by the minute at the moment, that all these banks could well be nationalised, all of them. So America will get a national bank. The Federal Reserve, for those who don't know, is not a national bank. It's not affiliated with America. It's affiliated with the United States, which has nothing to do with the country America. It's a foreign agent. So the gist of it now is the banks, all of them, have zero liquidity. This is why we have the issues with the ATMs. They haven't got enough cash. period. Now, all the banks are being threatened by the Rothschilds, the IMF, the World Bank, all of them. And the Rothschilds have a number of top-level corporations, Johnson & Johnson being one of them, and a whole heap others. And they're now threatening the banks that they will pull out their companies out of all the banks if they accept the trust funds. So Kim and the trust has responded and has told the banks she would give them $10 for every $1 that those corporations who pulled out of the banks, should they go ahead. So the banks will more than be restocked and be corrected for any of all the larger corporations that have looted everything out of society and the people for far too long. Let them go and sink. We will build new companies that operate in a better way. At a leverage of 10 to 1, it's not something you should be refusing. So, unlike the past, they thought they can create money out of thin air. This is called QE, quantitative easing. And the Rothschilds with their printing machines, De La Rue, amongst others. But all money must have an allocation number. And the quantum system the trust operates knows the numbers of every single US dollar on the planet and the other currencies. It recognises all the duplicate allocation numbers and instantly rejects them. Now this prevents assets being duplicated and leveraged against. You know, they have a thing where they'll get a collection of gold and leverage it 50 or 100 to 1 and create money out of thin air based on an asset that's already been leveraged previously. That's how it worked. Not no more, it doesn't. As with all the assets have been mapped and logged inside the system, so there's no confusion or cheating anymore as to what is real or what is not. But the clowns always think they can buck the system. Not this one, they can't. As several failed hacking attempts, usually the night before an RV attempt, or the latest RV attempt, which should tell people in the RV community that they clearly haven't got the funds and are wanting to hack it out of the trust to provide the funds for the fake RV. And yet so many people still carry on believing that the RV is going to happen. No. Impossible. And they've been adding super notes or printing currencies, particularly the De La Rue printing company, which is owned by the Rothschilds, with duplicate allocation numbers. I've all attested, and all of them failed. Once it goes into the system rejects it. And that will always remain the case going forward. They can't buck the system. They may come up with alternative systems, which are not alternative systems. They're not quantum systems. They're the old Babylon, Hercules, Prometheus, and all some other names of fake gods and whatnot. They don't work. And yet we have people in the military and in the agencies all sitting there waiting for payouts. Mercenaries around the world sitting there waiting for payouts. It's not coming, boys and girls. It's not coming. They have nothing. Now currently 19 billion of project funds is stationed inside America. The trust has managed to get funds out to other countries, and some of them have been released. Most of them blocked by threats by the Rothschilds, the IMF, and the World Bank people. But America is under a financial assassination program currently, and so all attempts are being made to block any new funds coming into this country. Essentially, the Rothschilds and the controlling elites are hell-bent on turning America into a third world country. This is what's going on. This is why the IRS sent $800 billion of the American people's money, collected taxes, to the Rothschilds Bank in Switzerland last year. All of that's been recovered, I might add, and it's gone back into the trust. This is what we're dealing with. The Federal Reserve blocks the American government, or the group acting as an American government, because it's not really a government, it's a corporation, blocks any attempts to give any tax money given by Americans to the acting government. The American acting the American acting government has had zero taxes received since 1975. None. That then leaves the acting government in need of borrowing, and it can only borrow off the Federal Reserve Bank at 10% interest. This is what's been going on. And yet we have military sitting there waiting for the payouts in dinars while the country and its people burn. So if America burns, I know the people around the world, it's all about America. This time it is. Because if America goes down, given 85% of world trade is in US dollars, the world goes with it. No ifs or buts. It is what it is. So currently 19 billion of project funds is being held in abeyance by banks at the request of the Rothschilds to block it and the controlling elites, as the Rothschilds have made promise after promise after promise to restock their banks with their funds, except they, or the Chinese holders, don't have anything to give or to offer. Never did. It's all an illusion. But whilst they're playing the illusion game, the country is burning, and its people. And so is every other country. To the people who listen to this for the first time, everything on this planet belongs to the trust, no matter who tells you different. And I mean everything. All of it got pledged to the trust. But the trust is not about to play I have everything like the 1%. What the trust has promised and will deliver is 50% of the trust money will go to the countries for redevelopment, rebuilding, infrastructure and humanitarian projects, and 50% will go back to the people who the money really belongs to. So the trust is not here to control anyone. It's given you all back what actually belongs to you. So everything, all the in-ground resources, all the buildings, all the resources, the land, you name it, it was all pledged to the trust. That's how they could then last week shut down the Federal Reserve, which belongs to the trust, and the IRS, which also belongs to the trust. The Vatican will follow. belongs to the trust. So the trust has made offers to all the banks, and yet we're still sitting here waiting. Funds into the banks have all been declared valid and legal by the Treasury, the Bank of International Settlements, the Department of Homeland Security, and other institutions, including USA Inc. government. The FBI, the OCC, the DOJ and the DHS have all been into the banks where the funds are currently being held and blocked, and still we wait for real actions. Now, if you or I suddenly went into a bank and told them to block X, Y and Z's account, what do you think would happen? You'd be slung in jail within the hour. And yet, they're going in there, telling them to release it. They say no, because we've been told not to, and then go away, investigate a bit more, and do nothing. And the lack of actions coming from the so-called government is a source of major frustration at best at this point, and sadly indicative on a larger scale. The banks, the governments, the institutions and accounts are all showing zero or less now globally. You would think someone would have acted by now, but it's a classic case of Nero fiddling whilst Rome burnt. Message to Trump et al. Act now and fast, or face the consequences. You have allowed, albeit under duress, we do know that, this country to be on the brink of financial assassination. There's no money left. So whilst you spend your time on Twitter telling us that Hillary and Obama and Comey and Mueller et al. Are crooked, that's something we already know. So you're not telling us anything new. And if they are that crooked, why haven't they been arrested yet? I'm sure if I'd done, or anyone who's listened to this show had done 0.01% of what these people have done, we'd just be spending the rest of our lifetime in jail a long time back. And yet these people walk our streets, spout shite on the Portal People News. We don't need to know they're crooked. We already knew that a long time ago. This country is 12 days away from a total shutdown, as the budget, funny enough, is due again. And yet no one has even mentioned it yet. Good luck with getting funds out of the Rothschilds to keep you going. The trust gave you $700 billion in March and told you how to protect it. You didn't, and you lost $400 billion to the SSP and the NATO goons. Thankfully, Kim clawed all that money back into the trust, but she will not be providing more funds for you to waste and fritter away until real actions take place. Kim and the trust has given you a platform to re-energise not only this country but globally into a better way for America and all the other nations. We gave you the Sovereignty Declaration 8 months ago, and yet none of it has been implemented. The question is why? What are you waiting for? Kim and the Trust have done enough to provide real solutions for the path forward, giving you access to millions of files showing the corruption on all levels. They've worked with every single department within this country. 16 to 18 hours a day for zero pay, I might add. Now is the time for you, Mr. Trump, the government, Q, the military, the Justice Department and all the agencies to do your jobs. And actions must be taken starting now, not tomorrow, not until the Rothschilds fail again, or wait until Friday when it fails again, and on it goes. Like today, Mr. Trump, now. We have done our jobs, and it's way past time you did yours. Force the banks to release the funds, or we all go bust. It's not that difficult. It's a fairly simple choice, actually. Once you put on some big pants and do the jobs you're all paid to do. All of you in high-level positions owe the people of this country and all other countries big time. You'll never be able to pay us back. But today is time for our payback to start. Now, this has been a Truth, Honour and Integrity update. My name's Thomas Williams.